Okay, hi guys. This is our first discussion, and because you know that for the normal quarter, we have like 10 weeks to finish all the materials, but during the summer, you only have like 5 weeks to finalize it. So for each week, we are going to go through two kinds of materials. So this week, we are going to cover week 1 and 2 of the normal quarters material. So I'll give you two options. First, you can take a look at the video, and during the video, maybe I will be first because you can speed up or pause at your own space. So it would be convenient to you to watch the video. And also you can go to the normal discussion time to look at the live Zoom meeting. And during the Zoom meeting, you're free to ask me any questions. And also you can go to my office hour if you have any questions regarding this course. Okay, so let's get started. First question, you look at the graph where this is the home price index from 1991 to the present. And the title is the Case-Shiller U.S. National Home Price Indexes. The x-axis is the year, right? So you can look at it from 1991 to 2017, and the index is on the y-axis. So the first question, define the independent variable and explain why time is the independent variable in the graph. So basically, if you look at the graph, and the x-axis is called the independent variable, and the y-axis variable is called the dependent variable. And the why we call it time is the independent, for many cases, independent variable is actually the reason and dependent variable is the result. Okay, so define answer for the first question, because now independent variable is time because time does not depend on home price index, but home price index depends on time, right? So question B, you are required to define the dependent variable and explain why the housing price index is the dependent variable. Because house price index changes as time changes, so the index depends on time. So one sentence, independent variable is the reason and dependent variable is the result. Okay, so this is first question. Easy, right? Question 2, you are interested in relationship between wages and education. So without looking at the following part, you can imagine that which one is the reason and which one is the result. Education is the reason, which is the result, right? Because after getting your like graduation certification, you can go to the job market, get jobs, and earn wages. So now, if question A asking you, which variable is the dependent variable? Now, wages are dependent variable because this is a result. And people with high level education are likely to receive high wages, thus which depend on education level. And which variable is the independent variable? So which one is the reason? Education is independent variable. Education does not depend on wages. Okay. So now let's look at question 2. Question 2, now after knowing which one is independent, which one is dependent, for the most cases, you only need to calculate the linear relationship between the x and y. So here, you're told that when the education level is 12 years and the average wage is 10, when the education level is 16, the average wage is 12. So calculate the slope of the straight line. So under this case, it assumes that there's a linear relationship between wage and education. So here because you only need to calculate the slope. So this is the formula that you can use to calculate the slope, where the denominator is x2 minus x1 and the numerator is y2 minus y1. So now you can get the slope of it. And after getting the slope, 1/2, you can write this form because this is the linear relationship. So there's only one thing you don't know is the intercept, right? How to get it? You can choose when x equals 12, y equals to 10 to substitute into this function and then get the intercept. Also, you can use x is 16, y is 12 to substitute into this function to get the intercept. Of course, you can get the same result. So now you can get the y-intercept is 4. So what does this mean? Intercept means that when education level is 0, so without any education training, the wage is 4. Okay? Interpret the function relating wage and education in detail. A person with 0 education level receives a wage of 4, and every 1 increase education level, which increased by 1/2. So this is the meaning of the intercept, and this is the meaning of slope. Question 3, and solve for x in the following questions graphically and algebraically. Okay, so here you have 2 linear functions, right? And you need to solve what is x. You just need to solve it together. So this is a mathematical concept. If you have any question, feel free to go to my office hour and we'll solve it to you step by step. But here, I think maybe most of you have the knowing how to solve it fundamentally. Okay. Okay, so let's look at question 3. Again, you are going to solve what is x. What is x? So here I leave the result. You can practice. Okay. And all these questions about the mathematical thing. Okay, now we can go to question 4 to go back to our economic problem. Here, now consumption is labeled as C. So here, this is dependent variable, right? And Y is income, independent variable here, and R is the interest rate. So here there are 2 independent variables because the assumption is that consumption is not only based on your income, it's also based on your interest rate. Interpret the consumption function slopes and intercept and note independent and dependent variable. So here, independent variable is Y and C, and Y and R, and dependent variable is C. And now you know the slope of Y is 0.75, and the slope of R is -10. And the intercept is, you can think the intercept is 500, or 500 minus 10 plus 10 times R. Okay. And you need to graph it when R equals to 2. So when R equals to 2, you just need to substitute R's value. And it will go to the normal linear regression with only 1 independent variable, right? So if R equals to 2, then C equals 500 plus 0.75 times Y minus 20, right? So now the intercept is actually 480. So you need to graph it like in this way. And also when R equals to 3, just substitute it and you can get the new intercept, but the slope does not change. Okay, question 5. In Adam Smith's book, The Wealth of Nations, he wrote, "Nothing is more useful than water, but it will purchase scarce anyway. scarce anything can be had in exchange for it. A diamond, on the contrary, has scarce any value in use, but at a great quantity of other goods may frequently have better exchange for it. So what does this mean? So it means that the supply of diamond is much less than the supply of water. So that's why the price of these two are quite different. Okay, so now if you are going to create a graph and explain how it's possible for the price of water to be much lower than the price of diamonds, it is because of the supply, right? You know that supply of diamond is much less than the water. So how to graph it? You can use one graph because the demand for diamond, the demand for water is actually kind of fixed. The only thing different is the supply. Okay, so diamond supply is pretty quantity is small. So you can look at here, it's near the axis. And the supply of water is large, so it's far from the axis. So that's why the intercept gives us the price. For the diamonds, the intercept is here, right? The interaction point is here. So the price of diamonds is here. And also the interaction point is here for water. And the price of water is here. So you can take a look at why the price of water is much lower. And question 6, according to one observer of the lobster market, after Labor Day, when the vacationer have gone home, the lobstermen usually have a month or more of the good fishing conditions, except for the occasionally hurricane. Use a demand and supply graph to explain whether lobster prices are likely to be higher or lower during the fall and then during the summer. This is because of the demand, right? Because of the number of vacationers, okay? So because when most vacationer has gone home, demand decreases. So when demand decreases and supply doesn't change, then the price decreases. And if fishing for lobster have another month or more of the good conditions, supply increases. And under this case, if demand doesn't change, then the price decreases. Okay, so here is the case. The original one is as before and demand before means the original supply and demand. So because of the vacationer gone home, then you can look at the demand after and the supply before. So the interaction point is here, is lower the price, right? But if the supply of it increases, you can take a look at the interaction of S after and demand before. So again, the price decreases compared to the original price level. Okay. So now question 7. Again, this is the similar question. Maybe I will leave it to you because it gives you when the supply of the gas change, then what would happen? Okay, the demand of the gas change. And there's only one graph shows that when the demand increases, then you will have the higher price. Again, this question is actually tell you about when the supply changes. When the supply decreases, going to the left means decreases. because at the same price level, you will have less supply. Then it will cause the price increases. Again, question 8 is actually you need to think about it. Because of the price of gas change, what would be the direction of SUV hybrid demand and supply change? Okay, because you know SUV needs gasoline and the hybrids can use electronic. Okay, so again, I will leave to you because all the questions are the similar questions. You can pause and take a screenshot if you want. And actually the last few questions is actually the open question. You can have your own opinion. So here, for example, discuss the benefits of owning a home versus renting a home. What are the costs of owning a home versus renting a home? So you can answer this as own opinion by using own opinion. There's no fixed answer. Okay. And again, for B and C represents the supply and demand change for the homes. But one thing that you need to be careful is that when you go question D, not because of the home prices nearly tripled in 6 years, then besides the demand change, the supply also change. Because imagine that you are the supplier. If you know, okay, now the price of housing is pretty high, then what do you do? You would expand, right? You would build more houses to earn more money. So that's why at the end, the supply will also change. So this is could basically to some extent lower the housing price. Okay. So I think that's it for the week 1 and 2. So you can see that there's nothing but the demand and supply graph.